psychiatry in 6 years. Of this, 100 are specialized psychiatrists and general nurses, while the rest are doctors, pharmacists, technicians, and other experienced personnel in the health delivery value chain. Data we've got from the BBC Health Desk also shows that in 2022 alone, more than 120 nurses joined the UK Nursing Register, a situation which has been confirmed by the head of nursing at the Greater Accra Regional Office. And we are also told that the intensive care unit alone has lost 20 nurses to the UK and US in the last 6 months. So since January until now, 20 nurses from that intensive care unit alone. A worrying situation calling for ways, and people are calling for an end or a solution to stop the brain drain. We are trying to understand the situations a bit more, and to help us delve into the matter, we've invited policy analyst and consultant Mr. Peter Tekwe to the table. Mr. Tekwe, thank you for making the time to join us once again.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Tekwe is here with Philemon Japon, who is an assistant PRO at the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. And I'm guessing we all can understand why you had to be a part of this panel. But let me start with Mr. Tekwe and try to get some perspective on what is happening. Is this a policy failure, the fact that we are training all these nurses only to lose them to other countries where, to put it quite bluntly, the working conditions are better?
Well, partly it's as a result of that policy have not been, how do you call it, friendly enough for that. And I said partly because, of course, as a human, you also have a role to play in your own personal development as well. But to a large extent, I would say it's on the aspect of policy, because it's a foundation that everyone receives in terms of, career development. That determines how the person will grow in his, space. And so if you look at it from a larger perspective, of course, so far as we are in Ghana, and if you want to live and work in Ghana, then the conditions must be conducive enough for you. Then you look at what will enable you to stay and live in Ghana. And if the conditions are not there, if the conditions are not attractive, and of course, then we will certainly put it at the doorstep of policy. It's just like an individual going to school. Even though if your parent, take you to school, the process of you going to the school and becoming successful or passing, for instance, depends on you. But of course, if your parents don't take you to school, how will you learn and become successful? And so the foundation is from your parent taking you to school. They take you to kindergarten, and then that is where you grow, you develop. And so if the environment is not there, the condition, if the system is not there, of course, then there will be no motivation for you. And that is the reason why I said, of course, the greater part is on the policy directive.
But has anything changed recently that has made this even more pressing? I'm asking because if this has always been the case, then why do we appear to have a lot more increases in recent times? If the policy has not changed, why are we seeing more of the numbers exiting?
You see, the issue is that once people grow, the needs and the want of people also increase. And if you look at in the past where the same policy is there, but maybe people might have remained, it's because the conditions within the country or for you to stay, if at that time, looking at where economic, condition is at now, where we have prices of items going up, it's becoming expensive for people to live. It's becoming expensive for people to actually manage. And so in the past, you don't have to spend a lot of money in renting. You don't have to spend a lot of money in buying basic commodities. In the past, you don't have to spend a lot of money in moving from one place to another, even when you're going to work. But you find yourself in a situation where the conditions are such that even when you are working, it's as if you are better off when you are staying at home. Those days also, we don't have certain things. Let me give you a typical example. The current, youth, in the past where everybody is aggressive looking for a job. These days, when he finishes school, he has either the auntie or the sister or the brother or the parent who he lives with. They have DSTV, they have TV, they have everything. He can sit at home and watch whatever. So why will he stress himself to go and be working and they will give him money and even transport? At the end of the month, he still has to ask parents to give him or her money for transportation. When he stay at home, he or she will eat free. He will watch television free. He sits in there. So sometimes they have a car. They can send him driving around, go to friends. So he sees that he has the comfort not to stress himself than to be in the work. And so the changes are taking place quickly, and as a result, we need to also look at what needs to be done to be able to attract this. You see, now it's become very expensive to train people and to have experience at a certain level. And so the reason why the policy is there, but that people are moving, is because whilst the changes are taking place, unfortunately, we are not looking at those policies to see how to carve them to suit the current changes that we are all experiencing, and that is what is happening now.
I must say that, Philemon, we have loads of respect for the work that you and your people do. And I want to say good morning to all the amazing nurses at the Kolebu Maternity and Children's Departments. This weekend I've spent the greatest part of my time with you lot there. Nurse Hamdia too. I think that you all do excellent work. And for the nurses I met at the Children's Emergency Ward at Kolebu, kudos to you. Keep up the good work. I had the opportunity, Philemon, to speak with one of the nurses whilst I was at emergency. And I was telling her, Auntie Nurse, my boy wants to be a doctor. And she was quick to say, yes, certainly be a doctor. Don't be a nurse, because we are overworked and we are overstressed and we don't get paid enough. But everybody in other professional spaces may very well say the exact same thing. And no, we are all not leaving. So why are you going? Why do you make that decision? Because it's difficult for people everywhere. Why do you think your own case is more peculiar or different?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that, let me greet my president, Mrs. Perpetual Ferrampofu, who is the GRNA president. She's currently in Geneva, and then the general secretary is there as well. We have difficult situations in Ghana, and I don't think migration of nurses from Ghana to different countries started today. But when the situation gets unbearable, you can only wish that they don't go.
When do you say it has become unbearable?
All right, so let me use this as a scenario. You qualify as a nurse. You are posted to a district. When you go there, you need to rent your own accommodation. And you get a place, and then they are charging, let's say, 500 Ghana cedi or 600. You just want a chamber and a hall, or even a single room. The owner of the place is requesting for 2 years advance before you can move in. And imagine somebody who has just finished, your salary is very small. The staff nurse salary is very small.
Rental assistance scheme, the government policy that has just been introduced a few.
From where? We started negotiating for rent assistance long ago. And in 2021, we went on strike because of some of these things. We requested government to take care of the rent of nurses and midwives in this country. Gone are the days when they build hospitals, they build quarters. When I qualified as a nurse in 2005, I went to a staff quarters, and it was nice working because your house is very close to the hospital. Now it's not like that. We have thousands out there who are finding it difficult to even get a decent accommodation to live in. More so, you have a very poor salary, which cannot meet your daily conditions. If you migrate to US, I'm just giving these scenarios. I don't need to give you the conditions. You will get it for yourself. You can be paid close to $2,500 a week. And that's when you are recruited by an agency. Let's say the agency is cheating you. So they are taking about 40% or 50% of what you are earning in a week. And you are getting $1,000. That's the worst case scenario. In a month, you are walking home with like $4,000. That's the least and the worst case scenario. And compare it to our living conditions here, compare it to the salaries here, compare it to where we work. deplorable conditions. People are working in the rural areas. We've negotiated for rural incentive allowance. The government is failing to implement such conditions. So we cannot hold back. Our people will continue to go.
But do you think it's fair for a system that trained you, for a system that gave a lot into your training, for you to now qualify and then just go out there and, give your services to the highest bidder and leave even the cost of your training behind on the taxpayers who would then be going to hospital and not have as good a care regime as they could have if they had the benefits of the full numbers? Do you think you are unpatriotic?
I don't think nurses and midwives in this country are unpatriotic, and I don't think the fairness you are using is justifiable.
It's not?
It's not justifiable. Look at what happened in COVID. In fact, the nurses that got infected, they are quite a good number. Ask me whether the government even paid the promise insurance that they promised.
Did you never get it?
We didn't receive that. We didn't receive
that. The tax waivers and the...
We got tax waiver. Tax waiver was for all health workers. The 50% cutback was for those who were designated to be working at COVID centers. Not everybody. We classified ourselves as frontline workers. I never got anything like 50%.
The larger population of the Ghanaian population or the Ghanaian public did not get 50%. They did not get tax waivers.
The larger population of the Ghanaian population were at home. Nurses and midwives were exposed to all the issues with COVID. People got COVID. They got post-exposure complications. Some cannot walk far. Some cannot climb steps. Some had complications. Some died.
What's the cost of training one nurse in Ghana?
The cost of training one nurse in Ghana is as expensive as the kind of nurse you are talking about. We have different cadres of nurses. We have the enrolled nurse who are the least, or let's say the nurse...
entry level, let's say.
Nurse assistants. We have the diploma nurses. They are the chunk of the nursing that we know. We have the degree nurses. We have the specialized nurses. For you to qualify as a specialized nurse, you would have gone through the basic training. If you enter at the degree level, it's different. Or if you enter at the diplomate level, you would have to go to the Ghana College of Nurses and Midwives, who train for 3 more years. And before you can do that, you might have practiced for some time before you can go. So it's expensive to train one nurse.
What's the cost to you? That's the question I want
to cannot quantify.
I want to understand. Because when you're in nursing school, there was a time when nursing school was not paid for by the students who were going there. In fact, even though I know there are issues with the nurses' allowance, some allowances are still on paper reserved for your people. So you still have it better than other people, and you're still...
Well, if we are to go on this tangent, I'm sure, and I'm afraid, you may let me say things that the government may think that we are doing a disservice to this country. But I think let's be fair and let's be realistic. I'm saying that the living conditions of nurses and midwives in this country is porous. We don't have rent allowance. We don't even have medical insurance. You are sick in a hospital you work in, and you would have to take care of your own medical bills. Who does that? And you are posted to a community, you don't have any rent, you don't have any good accommodation, you work with a very meager salary, coupled with a lot of unfriendly conditions that we meet at the hospital. Sometimes we have to make do with resources that are limited. And I'm saying that this is not the first time we are having migration issues. In President Kufuor's time, in 2001, 2002, he brought in the car waiver. It helped nurses to be able to procure 1.8 vehicle or below so that they can commute to work easily. There were a lot of staff courtesies. They brought the additional duty hour allowance. That all these things were to mitigate the situation
and reduce to them?
The government, the SWR government, scrapped all these opportunities and these privileges. We don't have waiver anymore. We have been to the Honorable Vice President's office to petition on some of these things. And they give us good ways and good promises. We are here to see them. We hope that if we put in good and decent conditions for nurses and midwives, it just should be fair. If it is fair, I don't think we are unpatriotic. I don't think everybody wants to live abroad. I did my IELTS exam in 2014 in UK. I happened to do it in UK, but I didn't want to stay there. I came down with all the conditions that were there. And I know a lot of nurses and midwives want to remain in Ghana. They want to serve, they want to take care of their children, their family, and they want to deliver their service to Ghana. But if the conditions are harsh, some even want to join their husbands. It's not just because they want to travel abroad. They just want to join their husbands. But the government has put embargo on migration and of nurses, and we have petitioned about. I'm getting information this morning that they have lifted the embargo, and I'm sure a lot more people.
I'll get your thoughts on that embargo in a short while. But Mr. Tepa, you listened. I asked a lot of questions to give us some perspective on which to base some of the analysis that you are making. So the idea is that it's hard, and like you said, the economic conditions make it even harder. Where can we even begin to make amends or to correct, if there are any mistakes to be corrected, the wrongs of the past?
You know, I indicated that the economic conditions, and what he said is not even peculiar to only the nursing profession. I mean, this is something that cut across.
And it's what I told him, that we are all in this together. But exactly. So why are the health professionals on so glaring?
Yeah, because, you know, the professions are not the same. Because they are seen as frontline workers. And, you know, I mean, of course, if your health system has a challenge, definitely they cannot be taken out of the equation. One of the challenges we have as a nation is that we don't build the right infrastructure to support the kind of policies that we profess. And so the economy seems to be growing, but we are not putting in the structures to grow it. So we realize that we are growing faster than the structures we are putting in place. So, for instance, in the past, where he indicated the example that those days you were posted and then there's a quarters or there's a place for you to stay. When we see that the numbers are increasing and we are now expanding the infrastructure of the health system, where we have clinics and hospitals and every now scattered across. That tells us that we must then look at the infrastructure that goes with it holistically. You know, I had a friend who called me, and he came to me he said he lives in Accra, and he's been posted as a nurse to a certain region. And he says, I live with my parents, and the situation is that I don't have money for rent. And he needed, I mean, that is his concern. So he wanted a change. But how can that happen? You see, because where he's going, and I was telling him that if you want to actually learn, those are the places you have to go, because that's where you see some complications that if you are in maybe the hospital in the city, you may not see. You may have opportunity to do things that you may not be able to do. But the person is concerned about the situation he or she is going to be in. And to be fair, I mean, if you say go where? And so if we don't put the structures in place, and that is why the issue of our policy direction and what are our priorities must come in. You know, I indicated to you that gone were the days when people are aggressive looking for a job, and anything you give him or her, he will take. If you look at the recent statistics by the Ghana Statistical Service, now they are publishing it, I mean, weekly and quarterly, and you are looking at about 3.5 million people changing jobs within a quarter. I mean, for a whole period, and you're asking yourself, so you see that the level at which people are leaving jobs and changing jobs becoming more frequent. So everybody is looking up the next time we want to see which vacancy can he take advantage of, or can he take opportunity of. So, and it is because the conditions are not right for us. It is not only in the public sector, in the private sector as well. Those things are there.
But the government always makes the point that in order to offer anything, it has to be able to finance it. So, for example, when it's talking about offering extra incentives, like Philemon mentioned, to give people a little extra allowance to live in the more rural communities. It's one pot government is drawing all these things from, and everybody is eating from that same pot. And so the argument is, whilst they can make some overtures or they can put certain small bits in place, they cannot assume the overwhelming request. They just cannot. There's no money.
You see, that might be a discussion that maybe cannot happen now. But if you tell somebody there is no money, and then the person look at your lifestyle, and you are telling the person that there's no money, you see, people are watching us. If you're a leader, and they know who you were and who you are now, and then you are telling them that there's no money, but you are not living the kind of lifestyle that will let them believe that indeed there's no money.
Mr. Also, when someone comes to you for help and they say, "Oh, Peter, can you give me 3,000 cedis?" You might very well say, "I don't have 3,000 cedis," but then the person will come and meet you, maybe having lunch at what, I don't want to mention a place, GBC has a Shangri-La, and you perhaps ordered the most expensive item on the menu. So the person will look at you and think, "I just came to you for money and you said there was no money, but here you are, you've ordered the most expensive item on the menu. It means that I don't have extra money to give you. It doesn't mean that what we need to get by, we don't have it." So perhaps that's the argument, that there might be no money to give Philemon and his team every single thing they are asking for, but the enough that should keep the system running. That one is there.
There's a difference between asking for help and what you are entitled to. And so if somebody comes to me and asks me for 3,000 cedis, he's asking for support. That is different from me working and I'm supposed to be giving this and you are not giving it to me. That is different from me working and I'm supposed to be provided with the right working tools and you are not giving it to me. When it happens like that, it is no more help. It is now becomes like a punishment. And that is why the person then starts looking at, where else can I get these things that will make me live comfortably?
But you know, the NHS does not have NHS housing for every single nurse, for example. I know that for a fact about the UK. So when we make the case that, oh, government does not give nurses like accommodation, it's not like everywhere in the world, every single health professional is housed. So there are some, limitations to some of the arguments though. But your response to that is what?
Yeah, I think that the NHS is paying the nurses and midwives well enough to be able to take their own accommodation. I don't think the government's bungalows are comfortable enough. I lived in a single room. It's very small, like a quarter of where we are sitting. And I had to move out when I had enough money to rent 2-bedroom for myself.
So the pay sum was coming.
The pay was not enough. I had to do extra things to be able to sustain myself. I do business. But I'm saying that there are nurses and midwives out there who are dedicated to work. Even resource to work with is a challenge at some places. They have to do 24-hour shift at times. If you go to the CHIPS compound, they stay in the community. I mean, beautiful nurses. How to even get a suitor to marry you is even a problem.
Oh,
because you can't find some in there. So the situation cannot be relegated. If you generalize the issue, you may not get the import of what we are saying. If you are paying the people well and they are able to meet the economic situation, I don't think we'll be crying for accommodation. Everybody wants to build. Everyone wants to have a place of his or her own. But here's the case: the salary is not.
What's
good.
the basic salary of, for example, a diploma nurse?
Around 2,000 Ghana cedi.
A qualified diploma nurse?
Yes.
I just want to invite our audience into this conversation, and I'll read some of the messages so that I get your impressions. 05555610034. What do you think should be done about this issue of migration of professionals from the country to seek better lives out of the country? So professionals are traveling abroad just because they cannot make ends meet. In Ghana, that's the question. 05555610034. The nurses are having their turn today. Perhaps another time we'll invite another group of professional workers to also come and have their say. But some messages are already coming in thick and fast. Good morning, GTV. Concerning the nurses' departure from Ghana, my wife completed the nursing college in 2018. Up until now, she's not posted. She got clearance. and she filled the form online in 2021 but didn't get her postings. We roamed Accra for several months but didn't have any positive results. We are planning her relocation abroad where they value nurses and she can easily get a job. That's what one of our viewers sent us. I'm going to try to read a few more messages. Good morning, Madam Thelma. Poor living conditions is not only happening in the public sector. In fact, it is worse in the private sector. We see no other way but to leave. And this is the other message that we have received. 055-55-61034. Let us know what your thoughts are. So, delayed postings, what's the issue there?
Yes, so when it comes to posting, as we speak, we have over 17,000 nurses, that is diploma and degree nurses, who completed school as far back as 2020, and they are still at home. And we have over 6,500 or 6,700 of the auxiliary nurses, that's the enrolled nurses, who are also still at home. And we have quite a number that are up and coming. That's like those who are doing their rotation, they are almost completing. And if what is interesting is that the migration is not for nurses that are just completing school. It is the qualified nurses, those who have worked for, let's say, 5, 6 years, 10 years, those with experience, those with other expertise. Recently, Barbados, that's an island that is in need of nurses. We're looking for degree nurses. So we as an association have petitioned government to help us increase training and then cut back on the auxiliary training. We should stop it totally. Convert those institutions to diploma awarding institutions. Increase more degree awarding training and then specialized training at the Ghana College of Nurses and Midwives. And we can even set up a program, like a policy for migration. So maybe when you are done with your training, we can have, or you are working, we can have a migration process where the government will benefit and then the country benefits as well. Because you'll be on duty with a nurse, you come to work today, next week the person has left to UK or is left to US, and you'll be alone, you have to work. You need to fill in the vacuum until the person is replaced. So government must take practical steps to recruit the nurses at home. Some pickets and they are arrested, they are molested, they are insulted. I mean, why should we spend money to train people and they are left at home? Why don't we employ them and then they learn from those who are experienced, who want to travel abroad? After all, they have served for 10 years. They have served. They want to go. Give them the opportunity to go. Let them train those who have just come so that they can fill in the vacuum and then also serve the country where we need the nurses and midwives.
We understood that there was a certain conversation about bonds.
Yes.
Being one of the calls that if you want to stop them from leaving, then let them enter into a bond with the government and the Ministry of Health so that they do not get to leave until a certain period of time has lapsed. Have you heard those conversations?
Sure.
What's going to happen there?
No, government cannot sign bonds now because they are not paying for the training. Even the entities, the government reduced the intakes because they were not able to pay for the allowances and the feeding and all those things that they used to do. So at that point they had to open it up and then allow the people to pay themselves. So you can't allow somebody to pay to sign bond after he's trained himself. For instance, in the university they are paying their own fees. The cutoff for nursing at University of Ghana is at grade 8. So it means you have to get a lot of good grades before you can be there. If you get something around 9, grade 9 going, it's like you're a fee-paying person. You have to pay your own fees. And you pay all this money, you can't sign bond after paying your fees.
So the bond, do you know?
Yes, the bond. I don't think the bond is the way to go. And even the bond, for how long? It's for 3 years. You've finished. Those who are going, they are not 3 years nurses. They are 10 years, they are 15 years, they are 7 years. They've already served their quota. So that's where your question comes in. The unpatriotic doesn't come in at all. They've served. I'm saying that if their conditions are better, they won't go. Let's look at a more harmonized way of keeping nurses and midwives in Ghana, or else we are going to lose out the high quality skilled nurses and midwives. And look, we form about 65 to 70% of the health workforce. We will never achieve the universal health coverage. We will not get the sustainable development goals. It will be a mirage if we allow the experienced nurses and midwives to go.
Someone has said a message and said, Thelma, you do not need to invite any other health professional to come and say anything. The gentleman on the show is saying all that needs to be said. Can you hear the figures he's mentioning? The number of nurses still sitting home? I've heard 17,000 is a big number, and there are more still in training.
Sure.
who will be passing out, and then they will also be joining those numbers. Mr. Tekwe, before we wrap up, we've talked about what the focus should be. What should be the most immediate thing that should be done to even slow this number down? Because we know for a fact that no matter how the conditions are, some people would voluntarily want to go and live elsewhere, and we cannot legally stop people from doing what they want to do. But if we want to bring the numbers down considerably, what are the most low-hanging fruits government can pick now?
That's very good. In fact, so government has to focus on the essential services, like the nursing profession, for instance, and then bring out a policy that will help them to stay at least for, let's say, 5 or 10 years. And in doing so, these are some of the things that government should be looking at. Looking at the situation when somebody finishes school, for instance, one of the major problems is accommodation. And so if that is the case, then in such areas, of course, I mean, government is working with financial institutions as well. They can enter into an agreement where you can give them very soft, supportive loans, where instead of giving it to them at the normal market rate, you can reduce it drastically. Of course, we have a lot of funding where the person is giving that support to rent for the next 5 years, where I mean, he or she will be able to pay within that space. So in that case, if you are posted to a particular place, the only thing is that you look for the accommodation. Government will help you to pay for it. Then within the space, whilst you are working, it will be deducted from your pay, and this will not be at the market rate. Also, with those who are also in the school, because government is having a challenge in terms of the allowances. That is why, for instance, they are cutting the numbers. But we need more of them. So what do? If it's because of the allowances you can't pay, of course, again, you instead of making it for free, because this money allowances that are given to them is given to them for free. Some of us who went to school, we took student loan, and after that we ended up paying. Government can look at that system where they can partner with some of these banks that, look, these people, give them loans and give them moratorium. Instead of it being a burden on the government, then be a burden on them, so that when you take the loan, you give them a lot of, number of years, and then in that case, the person cannot travel out of the country, because if you are supported, of course, you need to pay off before you leave, so that when they finish, these ones become a responsibility for them to honor before it become an obligation. So they make sure they stop them. For me, I am of the view that if it is a burden on the government, so government to scrap the allowances, which is free, and rather look at doing it in partnership with the financial institutions to provide them with very soft loans to rather support them.
We were in this country when allowances were removed from the training nurses, and Philemon and his people came out agitating the removal of the allowances, insisting that they should be restored. Hence, when the new government took over, those allowances were restored. Today we are making the argument about whether or not we can afford, and whether or not some people should be asked to take loans and others should be given free monies from government support. So where do we draw the line? I know we have to go, but we need to establish.
Yes, just a quick one. If the government will be very honest, they will realize that there are some of the decisions when they took over the power, they rushed in taking them, and they could have slowed down and it could have helped them a lot. This is one of them, because if you cannot pay and it's in arrears for years, then you could have realized that I could have taken my time to look at the reason why it was taken out and see how I can rather modify it to suit the current times. But you've restored, has not been paid. By the time it's paid, it is not able to manage what it's supposed to manage. Then what is the reason? That's why you have to look at an alternative to help them to manage it properly.
Yes, that was it. Good morning, Thelma. Please tell government to allow the health workers to go find better conditions elsewhere. Not only nurses, so with the other suffering citizens are also getting out of this country. Very soon, there will be no one for them to govern. Igwe sent us that from Dodowa. Igwe, I've read your comment. Hi, Thelma. Is Thelma saying if she gets to work in BBC at Bush House in London, she will still say, I'm patriotic in serving Mother Ghana and reject the offer. Do you remember Richard Cote of GBC and Komla Dumo of Joy FM, who all left the shores of Ghana for greener pastures? Titus sent us that message. Thank you for making the point. Your final word, will be out of here in a minute. Philemon.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to say that government should recruit our members who are at home, the nurses and midwives, to beef up the numbers. We are struggling at the workplace. There are shortfalls, and the figures you were mentioning are far lower than what we know. As we speak, we clear nurses and midwives to travel abroad. Before the clearance process, they have to go through a lot of processes, and one of them is clearance. And so far, about 9,000 people have cleared themselves, and we are aware that 6,000 have left the shores of this country.
6,000.
6,000, and so the figures are far lower. So government must fill in by employing those who are at home so that they can learn and then improve our conditions. And I'm sure we'll be willing to stay and serve. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for making the time for our chat this morning. Mr. Peter Tekwe is a policy analyst and a consultant. Philemon Japon is assistant PRO of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, talking about the Jay Gabra said Japa of our health professionals leaving to seek better lives elsewhere. And an ending conversation will continue to have them, and on the breakfast show we'll continue to make platforms available for all voices to be heard. I have another birthday shout going out to Edwin Treme of GBC Online. GBC Online doing all the work, handling all admin is a team. And so Edwin, happy birthday to you from all of us. Keep up doing the good work that you're doing. Let's get to 1 million by December is the agenda. GTV Ghana, everywhere you go. Help us to achieve that number. We'll be going on a quick break. When we return, the lifestyle segment will come up. Valerie is sitting down to have a chat that will set you up nicely to go into the rest of your Tuesday. And we'll see you again when the show returns after this musical break. We'll be back.